Hi, this is Alex from devstories.eu. Deep Agents, episode 11 of 16. A smart assistant should not ask you what database you use every single time you start a new conversation. Yet, out of the box, most agents suffer from total amnesia the moment a thread ends. To solve this, you need long-term memory stores. When you run an agent, it generates files. Listeners often assume that if an agent writes a file, it lives forever. It does not. By default, everything is ephemeral. Deep agents use a state backend, which stores files within the state of the current conversation thread. When that thread concludes, those files vanish. If you want true personalization where the agent builds a lifelong database of user preferences and project knowledge, you need a different approach. You need the StoreBackend. This connects directly to a persistent LangGraph Store, keeping data safe across multiple threads. But you do not want to persist every single temporary file your agent creates. You need a mechanism to separate ephemeral scratchpad work from durable memories. This is where the CompositeBackend comes in. Think of it as a traffic router for your agent file system. You configure the CompositeBackend with a default fallback, usually the ephemeral state backend. Then you explicitly register a route for your long-term storage. You tell the router that any file path starting with the directory prefix /memories/ must be handled by the StoreBackend. Pay attention to this bit. This persistence is not automatic. You must specifically route the /memories/path to the store. If you skip this routing step, the agent will just write memory files to the ephemeral state, and they will be deleted when the thread ends. Once you introduce a persistent database, you face a new problem. You cannot have one user reading the stored preferences of another user. To prevent this, the StoreBackend uses namespace factories. A namespace factory is simply a function that injects an isolation layer based on the current context. Instead of saving a file globally, the factory generates a prefix array, like the word users followed by the unique user ID. Every time the agent interacts with the StoreBackend, the database automatically scopes the operation to that exact user namespace. Let us look at how this flows in practice. You start conversation 1. You mention you are building a React application. The agent notes this and writes a summary to a file called projectnotes.txt, specifically placing it inside the /memories/directory. The CompositeBackend sees that directory prefix, intercepts the write command, and routes it to the durable StoreBackend under your isolated user namespace. Tomorrow, you start conversation 2. This is a completely new thread with zero immediate context. You ask a question about state management frameworks. Before answering, the agent checks its /memories/directory. The CompositeBackend routes the read request to the persistent store. The agent reads your project notes, sees the React details, and provides a highly relevant answer tailored to your specific stack. The context carries over perfectly, even though the threads are separate. Cross-thread persistence requires deliberate design by routing specific directories to a persistent store and protecting them with user-specific namespaces. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me. Until next time, take it easy.